You're listening to Rabbi Aryeh Wolbe of Torch in Houston, Texas. This is the Thinking Talmudist Podcast.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Thinking Talmudist Podcast. It is so wonderful to be here this beautifully hot Friday here in Houston, Texas. We are going to begin a new Gemara in Tractate Yoma. Tractate Yoma is focusing on Yom Kippur, but there are many interesting Gemaras that is always brought in, tying either different topics or different individuals, the Tanaic sages or the Amaraic sages. And when they say something, they say, "Oh, here's something else he said." So we're going to begin with a piece of Talmud here. The Gemara talks about the vestments of the Kohen, and then we're going to go into a different discussion. But Rav Huna bar Yehuda, Tani Rav Huna bar Yehuda, Rav Huna, the son of Yehuda, taught a brisa. Ra'amilo Reb Shmuel bar Yehuda. Some say it was Shmuel bar Yehuda. Achar shekolsa avodas tzibur, after the public service was completed, Kohen she'asasa lo ima kutones, a Kohen whose mother made a tunic for him, lovsha ve'oved ba avodas yachid. The Kohen would don it and perform the private service in it. The Gemara calls the service of removing the coal pan and ladle from the Holy of Holies a private service because it was not needed for the public's atonement. Rather, it is the Kohen Gadol's personal obligation to clear away the utensils from that place. Accordingly, the Kohen the service may be performed with a white tunic made by the Kohen Gadol's mother. So this was a special garment that was made by the Kohen Gadol, the high priest's mother. And this is so provided that he transfers the tunic to the public for temple use after he uses it. So now it becomes part of the temple's domain. Okay, it belongs to the temple. So the Gemara asks, Pshita, if the Kohen Gadol transfers ownership to the tunic, of the tunic to the temple treasury, it is obvious that he may serve in it. It belongs to the temple. So what then is the point of this dictum? Why is the Talmud saying this? So the Gemara answers, you might have thought that he should be concerned lest he not transfer ownership of the tunic in a nice way. Kamash Malan, the Tana therefore teaches us that we need not be concerned, and that we sanction the transfer of this tunic to the temple. So the Gemara cites a brisa that illustrates the practical application of Rav Huna's dictum. Amru alav Rabbi Yeshua ben Pabi. The Gemara says, it is said about Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Pabi, she'asalo ima kutones shel mea mana, that his mother made for him a tunic worth 100 mana. Okay, which is expensive. V'lovsha ve'oved ba avodas yach, and he donned it and performed in it the private service in the temple. U'masara letzibur, and he transferred it to the public for temple use beforehand. Amru alav al Rabbi Elazar bar Charsom. Further, they said about Rabbi Elazar ben Charsom, she'asalo ima k'tonos mishtei ribo, that his mother, he was also a Kohen serving in the temple, and his mother made for him a tunic of 20,000 maneh. Extremely, extremely expensive. But his brothers, the Kohanim, did not allow him to wear it. Why? Because it was such fine and delicate material, it would appear as if he was naked. And therefore, they didn't allow him to use it. So the Gemara questions this last statement. Umi mischazeh, was his flesh actually visible through the weave? Ve'amar mar chutin kafel shisha. But don't we know that we are taught that the threads of the priestly garments needed to be sixfold? Sixfold. You can't see anything. So what are you talking about that it looks like he's naked? So how could the body be seen through such a thick weave? So the Gemara answers, Amar Abaye, the Gemara answers, Kechamra b'mizga. His flesh could indeed be seen through the material, just as it is possible to see wine in a thick glass. Just because it's a thick glass doesn't mean it's not see-through. This was such expensive material that it was see-through, and therefore they did not allow him to wear this in the temple. So there's just a side piece here that we need to just understand. And he says over here, the commentaries bring, that even though there were no spaces in the weave of the priestly garment, the linen itself was so fine that it was transparent. Hence, it was possible to see the Kohen Gadol's flesh through the garments, just as it is possible to see wine through the sides of a thick glass cup. It's visible, so it's thick. It's expensive, so what? It's still visible. It's just an interesting sensitivity that we learn. One of the things that we learn from the temple is modesty. That the Kohen there was no steps in the temple, in the service area. There was steps leading up to it, but in the service area, there were no steps. Why? We know there was a big ramp leaving the kevesh that was leading to the altar, to the mizbeach. Why? So that the Kohen didn't have to lift up his legs. He was wearing a robe. He wouldn't have to lift up his legs and reveal his privates to the floor of the temple. There was a high sensitivity to holiness. Our sages also tell us something really remarkable, that there were no steps because steps is a predefined growth process. We've said this many times. The steps, if you have steps in your home, so they're engineered to be about 6.5 inches between each step. But the way we see growth is not pre-designed growth. The way growth needs to be is that every person takes their own step. It's interesting that when you have teenagers in your house, when you have little babies in your house, or if you have seniors, really old people, then you'll notice that not everybody takes the same size step. For the little baby, it's too tall for them to pick up their foot 6.5 inches. For the senior, it might also be difficult. They're walking with a cane, holding onto the banister. It might be difficult for them to raise their foot that high. For a teenager, they want to jump 6 steps, right? For an ordinary person, okay, so they'll take 1 step at a time. Even then, you're jumping 2 steps. I see at the JCC, I see all these teenagers are jumping up 4 steps at a time, running up the steps. And there are other people taking 1 step at a time. It's pre-engineered growth. Judaism doesn't believe in pre-engineered growth. So there was a ramp representing individual growth. Every person takes their own size step. There's another piece that we learn from this, is that on a ramp, there's no stagnation. You're either going up or you're going down. You put a ball on a ramp, it's going to roll down if you don't kick it up. We have FIFA starting now, right? FIFA in Houston, the big World Cup is coming to Houston, right? So they're going to be kicking the ball. If you put a ball on a ramp, you kick it up, it'll go up. But otherwise it's rolling down. You have gravity which pulls it down. If you put it on a step, it can sit there securely. You go out on your vacation, you come back, and it's sitting right there on the step. It didn't move. Because you can stagnate on a step. Judaism is constantly reminding us with the ramp to the altar that you have to be on a forward motion if you want to go up. You can't stagnate. You're either rolling down or you're going up. And that's a constant reminder that we need to be moving in our spirituality. Okay, so now the Gemara continues with a totally different topic, and we're going to see how this connects. The Gemara digresses to discuss the wealth of Rabbi Elazar ben Charsom. We mentioned Rabbi Elazar ben Charsom. Now we're going to continue, right, because his mother made a tunic worth 20,000 money, which was, imagine, a $20,000 suit or tunic. It's very expensive. It's really 20,000 money. If Ed was here, he would pull up his AI and ask how much a money is worth, right? Okay. So the Gemara digresses to discuss his wealth. Tan Rabban, and the rabbis taught in a brisa, Ani v'ashir v'rasha ba'in laydin. A poor person, a wealthy person, and a wicked person come to judgment. It sounds almost like the beginning of a joke. Yeah. Right? There's they all walk into a bar, right? No, so they all walk into judgment. David, you had a question? So over here, the commentary says that someone who is in the thrall of his evil inclination, the Brisa describes the complaint that can be lodged in heaven against each of these three types of people. So what's going on here? They go to the poor person and they say to him, why did you not engage in Torah study? If he says, I was a poor person, I was preoccupied with my sustenance, I had to go get a job, I had to do whatever I can to support my family, I didn't have time to study Torah. So the answer from heaven is going to be, Omrim klum ani hayisa yoser mi Hillel. Were you poorer than Hillel? Even though Hillel lived in dire poverty, he nonetheless overcame all obstacles to study Torah. So that's not an answer. The Brisa describes Hillel's situation now. Amro lav al Hillel azaken. They said about Hillel the elder, shebechol yom v'yom hoya oseh umishtaker b'tarpoik. That each and every day he would perform work and earn one tarpoik, which is, a tarpoik is worth 1/2 a dinar, which was not a lot of money. Chetzio hayanosin l'shomer beis hamidrash, v'chetzio leparnasoso ulefarnosas anshe beiso. Half of that tarpoik, which is 1/2 a money, so 1/4 of a money, he would give to the guard of the security hall. You think we only have security, so we mentioned security for Torah study. That's security then as well. And 1/2 of it would go to his livelihood to support him and his family. One time he did not find a job to earn his money. And the guard of the study hall did not allow him to enter. Sorry, you don't have money, you can't come in to study here. Right? Because everyone would chip in to pay for the heat, for the what we call electricity today, but then it would be for the firewood. Right? You want to come into the study hall and be warm and study Torah, you would have to chip in for the expenses of the study hall. Allah v'nitla v'yoshav al pi aruba. Thereupon he climbed up to the roof, suspended himself, and sat at the edge of the skylight. So there was a skylight. In order for him to hear the word of the living God from the mouth of Shmaya and Avtalion. It was their custom to delve in esoteric matters, the words of the living God, which means hidden ideas, in the study hall on Friday nights, especially after midnight. Very interestingly, the Ben Ish Chai, in the introduction to the book of Shmos, the Ben Ish Chai writes that the study of Torah on Shabbos is 500 times more valuable than the study of Torah during the week.
Really?
Yes. That's the Ben Ish Chai. You can look at it in the introduction to the book of Shmos, in the Ben Ish Chai. All right? Unbelievable, impressive opportunity that we have on Shabbos, not to read the newspaper, not to learn Torah. It's an amazing power because we have such a more greater ability to connect with Hashem on such a higher level because we have a neshama yisera, we have an elevated soul that is added to us, that studying Torah on Shabbos is so much more rewarded when we do so on Shabbos. So here he would go, and he didn't have what it took to prepay, I guess, for the Friday night session that was going on in the study hall. Amru osa hayom erev Shabbos hayah. They said that it was the eve of Shabbos. Utkufas teves hayah. So I knew it was during the winter season. The yorad olav sheling min hashamayim, and snow descended upon Hillel from the heavens, on top of the study hall. Kishal amud shachar, when day broke, Amar lo Shmaya v'Avtalion, Shmaya and Avtalion. Shmaya said to Avtalion, Avtalion achi, Avtalion, my brother, Bechol yom habayis meir v'hayom ofel. This is every day, our room here, our building, is illuminated by the light. It's already sunrise. But today it's dark. What's going on? Shema Yom Hamu'unanhu. Maybe it's a cloudy day. Heitzitzu Eineihem. They looked up into the skylight. V'ra'u Dmus Adam Baruba. And they saw a figure of a person at the skylight. Aluv Matsu Olav Rum Sholish Amos Shelik. They found that there were 3 amos of snow, 6 feet of snow on top of him. 6 feet of snow on top of him. Prakuhu v'erchitzu v'soku v'heishivu keneged hamedura. They extracted him. They washed him with warm water, not hot water, to open his pores, anointed him with oil, and sat him opposite the fire. Amru ro'u yizeh lechal olav Shabbos. They said that this one, for this great sage, Hillel, it is appropriate to desecrate the Sabbath. Now, we know that on Shabbos, you can save anybody's life. So why Hillel will desecrate the Shabbos for him? No. You can do that for anybody. I know, I'm in Atzola, and when we get a call on Shabbos, we take the call on Shabbos and we drive and we deal with everything that we need to do with our patient like it's Tuesday. So why is anything different? For Hillel, then we can desecrate the Shabbos. What do you mean? You can do that for anybody. Our sages say saving the life of any Jew overrides the Shabbos malacha prohibitions. Why did they say that it was appropriate only for someone like Hillel? So our sages answer that it is not so obvious that we desecrate the Shabbos to save one who consciously endangered his life, which Hillel did. He intentionally endangered his life, meaning he probably didn't realize how dangerous it is for him to stay in the cold like that. However, because Hillel risked his life in order to study Torah, it was indeed appropriate to save his life. The other commentaries, however, explain that the Shabbos was not in fact desecrated for Hillel because the fire had been lit before the Shabbos, and all the other activities mentioned are forbidden only rabbinically at most. But to emphasize how great Hillel's love for Torah was, they declared that this person had placed himself in a condition where it would have been appropriate, if necessary, to desecrate the Shabbos for him, even on a biblical level. He had put his life in risk for the love of Torah. So the Gemara says here that they took him, saved his life, and restored his life. That's how poor he was. He didn't have the 25 cents to pay the security guard, which was going to help to pay for the wood that, the entrance fee for their class. You guys are so lucky. There's no entrance fee here. Look at that, right? We have to make a sunlight here so that if someone can't, they can come in. You can just come right in, please. All right, so the Brisa now relates the judgment of the second type of person. So that's Hillel. So there's no argument for a person who says, I'm poor and therefore I couldn't study Torah because I didn't have money and I was busy earning a living. Earning a livelihood, were you poorer than Hillel? Hillel was so poor and yet he did not stop studying Torah. And we know how great Hillel was. Unbelievable. The Gemara now continues, what's about the argument of the second type of person? The wealthy person. Ashir omrim lo, the wealthy person, they ask him, mipnei ma lo asakta b'Torah, why did you not study Torah? What is he going to answer? Im omer ashir yisi v'Torah de'yisi b'nechasai, if he answers, I was wealthy, and I was preoccupied with managing my possessions, omer lo, Klum Asher Yisa Yosef and Rabbi Elazar. Remember Rabbi Elazar that we just mentioned? Were you wealthier than Rabbi Elazar ben Charsom? Although he was fabulously wealthy, Rabbi Elazar nevertheless overcame all obstacles to and the rationalizations against personal Torah study. He had all the reasons in the world. All my properties, I have to go visit my properties, I have to collect the rent, I have to sign the contracts, I have to buy, I have to sell, I have to this. No such thing. Rabbi Elazar ben Charsom was so incredibly wealthy, and yet he stopped everything to study Torah. Reminds me of one of my favorite stories about the Brisker Rav. The Brisker Rav married the daughter of a very, very wealthy businessman. And it was customary then that if you wanted to have a real Torah scholar, someone of the caliber of the Brisker Rav, you had to pay a nice dowry. So his dowry was an entire city block in Warsaw. Warsaw was like New York City today, or like Jerusalem. Right? It was like the most expensive downtown Moscow. Like imagine an entire city block in New York City. You know how much that's worth? Billions of dollars. It's unbelievable. He gave it to his son-in-law, the Brisker Rav. He says, this is your dowry. You married my daughter. I want you to sit and learn, and I want you to just collect the rent for the rest of your life. You'll never have to think about it again. You'll never have to worry again. Now, he was a great Torah scholar. You think he was going to go and collect rent himself? He hired somebody. Told that person, I want you to just go every month, collect the rent, anything that needs to be taken care of. You're the management, property management. He hired this guy, Joe Schmo. You take care of it, and this is your payment for doing that. So now he can just sit and learn and not worry about anything. What happened? World War I broke out, and the Brisker Rav left Warsaw during the war to protect him and his family. Comes back after the war, and he looks for his Joe Schmo, and his Joe Schmo is nowhere to be found. He goes to the city, and the city says, this is not your property. Joe Schmo transferred the deeds in the city to his own name. And he stole from the Brisker Rav an entire city block in Warsaw. And he fell into a terrible depression. Didn't know what to do. So you know what he did? He took this book, Chovos Halvavos, Shara Bitachon, and he studied it, and studied it, and studied it nonstop. And he declared after studying it that till now I thought that you know who's wealthy? Someone who owns an entire city block in Warsaw. I thought that's a wealthy person. He says, but now I know that someone who lives by the words of the Chovos Halvavos in Shara Bitachon, that's a true wealthy person. True wealth is when you have 100% reliance on Hashem. When you have no dependency on anything. You have no reliance on anything other than the hand of Hashem. Hashem is able to do anything. Hashem has all the power in the world. Hashem has all the compassion in the world. Hashem has all the love. Hashem has all this understanding. Hashem knows the big things, the little things, the small things, the not so important things. Hashem knows everything. And Hashem takes care of every one of our needs. He says that's someone who's really wealthy. So here we go. So he says, are you more wealthy than Rabbi Elazar? So the Brisa now describes Rabbi Elazar ben Charsom's situation. Amru Alav Rabbi Elazar ben Charsom. They said about Rabbi Elazar ben Charsom, Shehiniach lo aviv elef ayoros bayabasha, that his father left him an inheritance of 1,000 cities on dry land. The Brisa specifies that Rabbi Elazar inherited his wealth to clarify that he did not have to work hard to acquire it in his early years, right? He got it as an inheritance. B'chol yom v'yom, yet each and every day, nod tel nod shel kemach al ktefo. Still, notwithstanding that he had so much wealth, and ukenegdon elef sfinos bayam, and corresponding to each of those 1,000 cities, he gave him 1,000 ships at sea, so that he can transport goods from city to city. Ubechol yom v'yom, yet each and every day, notel nod shel kemach al ktefo, he would take a flask of flour on his shoulder, umahalech me'ir li'ir mi'medina li'medina lilmod Torah. He would walk from town to town, and from province to province, to study Torah. Of one time, his servants encountered him v'osulo angaria, and pressed him into service. Amar lahen, Rabbi Elazar said to them, "Bivakosha mikem, I beg of you, hanichuhu ve'elech lilmo Torah. Release me and let me just go learn Torah. Leave me alone." Amar alav, right? What does the commentary here explain? The word angaria usually refers to the service of the master of the town, who in this case was Rabbi Elazar ben Charsom himself. However, the servants did not recognize him. They mistook him for a resident of one of Rabbi Elazar's towns. He could legally be pressed into the service of their master. He was the master. He says, no, leave me alone. And Rabbi Elazar ben Charsom did not initially identify himself because he was uncertain the servants would believe him. And he did not wish to take time from his studies in order to convince them. So he just begged them, please just leave me alone so I don't have to work and I can just study Torah. Amrulo, they said to him, Chaye Rabbi Elazar ben Charsom, by the life of Rabbi Elazar ben Charsom, she'ein menichinoscha, we will not release you. Umiyamav lo holach v'ra osan. From this incident, it was apparent that all the days of Rabbi Elazar's life, he never went back to see his servants. Because he never wanted to be forced to have to go serve the master of that town, which was he himself. He didn't want to, which is, by the way, they have this thing that like the CEO goes undercover to see his own company, his own many, right? Yeah. That's a similar thing. He didn't want, he was the CEO, he was the owner of the town, and yet he didn't want to be identified. And what would he do? Rather, he would sit and engage in Torah study all day and all night. The Brisa concludes with the judgment of the third person, the third type of person, Rasha Omrim Lo. To the wicked person, they say in the heavenly court, why did you not engage in Torah study? If he says, look, I'm a handsome guy, and I'm entangled with my evil inclination, I have desires and temptations. Omrim Lo, Klum Noah Yisim Yosef, were you any more handsome than Joseph? The Brisa relates how extremely handsome Yosef was, and how much he overcame his temptation. Amru olav al Yosef HaTzaddik, it was said about Yosef HaTzaddik, B'chol yom v'yom hoisa eshes Potiphar mishadalto b'dvorim. Each and every day, the wife of Potiphar would attempt to seduce him with words. Bigodim shelav shelo shachris lo lav shelo arvis. The clothes that she wore for him in the morning, she did not wear for him in the evening, meaning she was constantly changing her wardrobe, trying to entice him and seduce him. Bigodim shelav shelo arvis lo lav shebeshachris. And the clothes that she wore in the evening, she did not wear again in the morning. She wore new clothes, constantly trying to appeal to Yosef. Amr lo hisham ali. After changing her clothes and her appearance and trying to arouse him, Potiphar's wife said to Joseph, surrender yourself to me and commit adultery. Amr lo lav. He said no. Amr lo, she said to him, well, Hareini chovashcha bebeis harsurim. I'm going to throw you into prison. Amar lo, Hashem matir asurim. We know that Hashem is the one who releases the imprisoned. Go right ahead. Hareini kofevcha komascha. I will strike your stature. You're the leader of my home. I will strike you down. What did he answer? Hashem zokif kifufim. Hashem straightens the bent. You'll beat me down, Hashem will stand me upright. Hareini misama seinecha. I will blind your eyes, she threatened. What did he answer? Hashem pokeach ivrim. Hashem is the one who gives sight to the blind. Nasna lo elef kikare kesef. She gave him 1,000 silver bars to enrich him and to bribe him to commit adultery with her. Lishmoa eleh, so that he'd listen to her. Lishkav etzlo liosimo, to lie beside her and to be with her. V'lo rotza lishmoa eleh, and he did not listen to her. The Gemara here says, the commentaries here explain that Joseph was rewarded measure for measure for resisting each of this woman's threats and inducements. She tried with everything to entice him, to seduce him, and he kept on staying strong in his commitment to his holiness. The Brisa expounds this verse to explain Joseph's decision. Lishka betzla ba'olam hazeh. He did not listen to her to lie with her in this world. Leo simol olam haba, because he did not want to be with her in the world to come. What does the commentary explains? That is, he did not want to be punished with her in Gehenna in the world to come. He says, if I commit this sin, I'm going to be punished in the world to come. I don't want that. The Brisa expounds this verse to explain Yosef's decision. Right? Oh, so we just explained. The Brisa now concludes, Nimtzo Hillel mechayev esani. And we see from this Gemara that Hillel obligates the poor people to study Torah. Rabbi Elazar ben Charsom mechayev esashir. Rabbi Elazar ben Charsom obligates the wealthy people. Yosef HaTzaddik mechayev esarishim. And Yosef obligates the wicked people. Meaning, our sages ask why Joseph is not mentioned first, inasmuch as he lived before Hillel and Rabbi Elazar. He explained that the Tana's listing reflects the importance of the judged in descending order. That is, the pauper is held in a greater esteem by the heavenly court than the rich man, and the rich man in a greater stature than the evil person. Now, the evil person, why are they calling Yosef HaTzaddik the evil person? Meaning, this whole idea of immorality is an act of evil. Not that Yosef was evil, but the circumstances are evil. It means that someone who doesn't hold themselves with purity and holiness, Yosef is called a tzaddik. There are two people in the Torah called a tzaddik. Noach ish tzaddik and Yosef HaTzaddik. To be in a place of such... Who was there? Who was there with Yosef in Egypt? Nobody. Nobody would find out. All right, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Nobody knows anything. Yosef had a relationship with Hashem. He says Hashem is everywhere. And we see that by his response. She says, I'm gonna take your eyes out. I'm gonna make you blind. She says, Hashem pokeach ivrim. Meaning he had a consciousness, knowing Hashem is the one who gives me eyes. Hashem is the one who stands us upright. Hashem is the one who releases the matir asurim, that releases those imprisoned. There's no threat because I know Hashem is with me. Because he had that consciousness is why he maintained his holiness. He maintained his purity. All of the greatness that we have to withstand temptation is from Yosef. Yosef teaches us. Noah, we see, we'll get into why he was a tzaddik as well. Why he's called in the Torah a tzaddik. It's very rare. We don't see Moshe being called a tzaddik. We don't see others being called a tzaddik. But we see, I'll tell you the similarity is very simple. That Noach and Yosef were both people who saved their generation. Noach, after the flood, he saved his family, and from there came the rest of humanity. And Yosef saved his family in Egypt, and from there came the rest of the Jewish people. So our sages say, someone who saves other people and looks out for other people, that's a tzaddik. Tzaddik, right? So Noach was limited. In his generation, he was a tzaddik, right? But you know what? To follow instructions is a big thing. It's a big deal. Go out there in the world and see. Did you ever drive above the speed limit? Ooh. Never. Okay, that follow instructions. Follow instructions. It says 35 speed limit. Why are you driving 45? It's a special thing for someone to follow. Look, the Torah gives us 248 performative commandments, 365 prohibitions. It's not so difficult. Just follow instructions. It is. That's greatness. That notwithstanding all the temptation, again, she tried to entice him in every way possible. She tried threatening him. That's how beautiful he was. It says, Ben Porat Yosef, the beauty of Yosef. Ben Porat alei ayin, bnot tzada alei shur. The women would stand on the walls. They would go up on the top of the walls to see Yosef. Every girl wanted to look at him. He was so beautiful. He was so beautiful. And we see that he was punished because he understood his beauty. The Gemara said that the commentaries explain that he was misalsel besaro, that he would comb his hair beautifully. He would look good. So perhaps he was held accountable for that because he was a little bit vain in that regard. But who are we to speak about Yosef HaTzaddik? Unbelievable. My dear friends, this concludes today's episode. We all have a great answer. We're learning Torah. And that's the greatest gift. That we're able to say, whether we're wealthy, whether we're poor, whether we're wicked, have wicked temptations. We're studying Torah. We come here every single week to study Torah. That's the greatest answer. God willing, we won't have any challenges to pull us down. We'll only use the Torah to continue to elevate ourselves, just like Yosef. My dear friends, have a great Shabbos.
You've been listening to Rabbi Aryeh Wolbe on a podcast produced by Torch, the Torah Outreach Resource Center of Houston. Please help sponsor an episode so we can continue to produce more quality Jewish content for our listeners around the globe. Please visit torchweb.org to donate and partner with us on this incredible endeavor.